Now I've got
Those are fine.
Welcome to East Rock Creek
Yeah.
Village's Armchair Travel. It's August 21st, 2025. Welcome. We're really happy to go on a trip to the Adriatic region with Ralph Blessing and Debbie Thomas. And thanks so much. Onward. Ralph, you're on.
Behind that. Go ahead. Start.
So as I was saying, and I hope you can hear me now, we had the good fortune of visiting 4 countries that all face on the Adriatic Sea. In other words, they're the backyard of Italy, if you will, going further east. And
can you talk louder, please?
I try, but I'm always told that I don't talk loudly enough. And then I try this and I feel like an idiot.
Well, now we can hear you better.
I feel like I'm screaming. So, but is this what is needed? I'll try. Or I'll let Debbie talk. She knows better than I where we were. But in any case, these countries, as I mentioned, were under the leadership or dictatorship, whichever, of Tito during at least until the mid-90s. I'm not sure when he took over. Do you recall, Debbie? In the 40s? In any case,
no, I don't remember.
He was considered the good dictator, I think, in many quarters. And to this day, we found that he is reasonably well thought of, unlike some of the other characters that were running around in the 90s and 80s. And
well, it depended on who you talked to.
Well, exactly. That's what I said, according to.
But that area also had a very long history. It was the Romans were in this area, then the Slavs, Byzantine Empire, Austria took control in the 1800s, and then with the Soviets again as part of the USSR. So there were many players in this part of the world.
But all things considered, when you look at that picture, right away you will notice the stone wall surrounding the city
of Dubrovnik.
And so that tells you a little bit about the security issues, if you will. Dubrovnik, if you look at this map, and this is a map of the 4 countries that we visited, Croatia, Montenegro, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Slovenia. Croatia, you would think, might end right here, but in fact it continues down to just where the airplane is under the name Dubrovnik. And apparently arrangements were made at some point for some of these inland countries such as Montenegro and Bosnia to have access to the waterfront as well. So, which is why Croatia gets bent around to get all the way down to here. But our tour and we traveled with a group called Overseas Adventure Travels. We've traveled with them 3 or 4 other times. This shows the outline or the itinerary of this trip, starting in Dubrovnik. And these are the roadways. We got to different spots along the way. And, oops. So it's a rather loop-de-loop. And ended up in Ljubljana in Slovenia. But Dubrovnik is known for its city, or for its walled city, and because it is a walled city.
The old town.
Right, the old town of Dubrovnik. but lots of very unique or artistic right on the waterfront. And again, but you can see it is patronized by the big ships, the big cruise ships. And I don't think we were at any point during our visit when we saw the ocean, there was always one of these cruise ships somewhere along the horizon. But inside it was strictly Old Town, if you will. This is one of my favorite pictures because it shows what goes on at street level, but then when you look toward the top in the middle, you see it's a series of steps that goes up and up and up, as do the lanterns and everything else. But many of the short alleys in that Old Town were of that nature. Any of the places we would go, we had a tour guide for the entire duration of our visit. But when we would go to these various locations, there would be a local guide giving us the ins and outs, the history in a nutshell of that particular location. So this person was discussing or describing things related to Dubrovnik and Croatia in general. And of course, snacks everywhere you turn. But again, when you're back out, you're surrounded by stone if you're wandering at the lower level of Dubrovnik.
And one of the main activities for tourists is to walk the walls of the old town.
But in fact, we were on the upper end of the wall walking around when we encountered these workers putting the final touches or improvements on maybe it's a window.
No, they're doing the roof work.
Well, I know it's roof work here, but I'm thinking that this.
No, he was still just doing the roofing on that section.
Meantime, I found this to be interesting, wondering what in the world is the purpose of a lopsided basketball court. But knowing how well people from that part of the world have done in the NBA, I figure, well, who knows? Maybe doing this kind of basketball court is to their advantage, but maybe not. But again, just the sunset, looking out to the west, and you can see the cruise ship and one of the not so shippy boats.
It's a local boat, yeah.
It's a good place to go if you're looking for sunsets. That's beyond any description. One of the first places we visited, because they had to take us to Kotor in Montenegro to satisfy the fact or the label of 4-country visit, one of them being Montenegro. We were in and out of Montenegro in a couple of hours, but it's a spectacular country, or
the city is.
The city's very ornate. The surroundings are overwhelming, and the visitors come from every which way. Many are from nearby areas.
Well, that was a conference of Jewish rabbis that happened to be there while we were visiting.
Okay, I didn't know that.
These were all the rabbis, and they were singing songs. We don't know what the conference was about, but it was a group that was meeting there and having a conference.
Then you see some people that have to be from the U.S. by judging by their attire, but maybe not. But looking farther up that hill, you can see the remnants of old churches that are presumably, possibly, maybe not presumably, but possibly no longer in use. Buildings,
These are still functioning.
they are?
Yeah,
Okay.
and one is Croatian church, one is a Serbian church.
So two separate churches?
Yeah, they're
Oh,
two separate
I didn't know
churches
that.
on the hillside.
What I didn't know when I first saw this picture was that it's also a place where school kids would be visiting or hanging out, one of the two. And maybe it's just part of their classroom activity.
I think it was an old fort up there. I think they were going up to the old fort.
But that sort of describe the area was surrounded by defensive mechanisms, if you will. When you're down low, you can see this is a wall that just snakes its way up or down, separating two parts of land. So it's not surprising necessarily when you hear that this area had a rather, what's the word I'm looking for? Not
It was fought
necessarily.
over a lot. There were a lot
Yes.
of wars.
There's-
And it was on an important trade route, so there it was strategically important.
But again, here's a different view of that mountaintop or that rocky overlook. This, I just have no idea what it is, but I just like the colors. It looks like it might be something you clean your pipe with, but back in Dubrovnik, we had the good fortune of riding the cable car up to the top. In fact, I think that's where that first picture that I showed you was taken. But this gives you a better feel for how the city, the old town, was walled in, and in all directions. It's but we got out and about, and then somebody was able to talk Debbie into dancing, which I have a very difficult job doing.
I didn't really have a choice. I was sort of pulled up out of my seat and
Okay.
danced. But it was it was a place where they make olive oil. And we had dinner there as well, but they were telling us about the different processes for making olive oil, cold pressed, and the advantages and disadvantages of different kinds of oil. I don't know about olive oil.
But the accordion is quite big in Croatia, in that area in general, I guess. Back down there near the wall, we joined in with one of the climbs, or starting to walk around the wall itself until we started to hear thunder.
Well, it's when we saw the big bolt of lightning that we got off.
Okay. Nearby was a nice little aquarium that I wandered into while Debbie went to a separate museum nearby, looking for models that would allow her to get that kind of a hat, I guess.
It was the Museum of Culture and the Rector's Palace, and I just thought it was humorous because they had several pictures there from the 17 and 1800s showing the popular hairstyles of the day, and this was one of them.
It's amazing.
These are contemporary flowers. Actually, you would be surprised at the location of the places where flowers would just pop up, crop up, and survive. So back to the map. This is, if you look at the top, as of January 1991. So this was when this was all one country under the leadership of Generalissimo Tito.
Tito.
And so again, here we started. We get over here, and then we're going to go up this way, and da, 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 da. But this is for the most part, identical to the one that we showed you at the beginning. As you pull out of Dvorak,
Dubrovnik.
they keep changing the name on me. How do you deal with that? But again, the cruise ships, every which way you turn. One of the first places we stopped on our way out of Dubrovnik is called Mostar.
Mostar.
And they were known, among other things, for this very ornate footbridge over the river. And it, unfortunately, the original version of it was blown up during the crazy war back in the 90s. And this was a rebuild, which was able to get UNESCO designation, I guess, with the hope that that would help preserve it, but who's to say? The interesting thing is, with this particular photo, while we were there, it was wall-to-wall people all along the top up there. There was one guy in his shorts, always hanging over the edge, with a basket for people to make a contribution. So he was going to dive into the water. And we watched and we watched and we watched, and he never did that.
Well, he only dives when he collects enough money, and apparently
that's it.
people were not
Yeah.
giving enough money, so he didn't dive off the bridge.
But when I was tinkering with this photo, it had wall-to-wall people up there. And then the recommended adjustment was to do the way it is now. So I figured, hey, that's good enough. So, but I like the idea of one person sort of dominating the scene, as opposed to crowding out in an area for lunch where you just share tables and share walls and whatever. The 90s was not the first of a more modern era of violent activity. This was in 1914 when what was his?
It was the Archduke
Archduke
Ferdinand
Ferdinand was assassinated on that spot
in Sarajevo,
which is the neighboring country or province.
yeah.
I guess at the time it was province or something. But that's what kicked off World War I, and it is what it is. But in Sarajevo, much of the city was leveled during the war of the Balkan Wars in the 90s. And this particular structure, which is extremely ornate, and it was the government main headquarters.
It's the city hall now.
Yeah.
The Sarajevo City Hall.
But during that war, it looked like it is shown in the photos in this handout or this binder that the guy is using.
And before it became the city hall, it was the National Library. And the Serbs who had surrounded the city of Sarajevo, when they bombed it, 80 to 90% of the National Library, which included many Serbian documents, priceless documents going back hundreds and thousands of years, 80 to 90% of the library was destroyed. And UNESCO with the help of I think Italy and Spain, helped to completely rebuild the building in the, I think it was 2014.
Mhm. But during the mourning period, if you will, or if it was a fundraising period, who's to say, but uh, well-known artists would come to contribute to the cause. But this was inside that building after that had pretty much been leveled. This is the interior today. One of the ornate staircases and stained glass windows, but the entire building now is so elaborate. It's a very popular destination for visitors as well as locals. Here's that building right there in the middle of this photo. If you're looking at it from above, climbing up the hill. And here's sort of the down, you can look farther and you see the taller buildings with the business district. I think the place, is this where that brewery is?
I think so.
Yeah. But take a few steps farther and look in the same direction, and you see one of the numerous grave
Cemeteries,
sites
yeah.
where people are buried by the hundreds. And
Yeah, sort of every open space is filled with these monuments, obelisks to the dead from that war primarily.
one of the unique things of that war, especially in Sarajevo and in that part of the country, was the need to go underground to survive, to move any mobility.
To get food.
So they hand dug a series of underground tunnels of this, and this is a picture of one of them. Or
It's actually it was really pretty much the only one, the Tunnel of Hope, because it started at the airport. Because Sarajevo was under siege for several years, and Serbian snipers were surrounding the city. So anybody who tried to get food in or go out was being picked off. So they dug these tunnels, and we went into the tunnels, but it was they're very low and they're wet, but it was really what was allowed the citizenry of Sarajevo to survive that war. And one of the moving stories they told us was that, because they showed pictures of goats going through the tunnel, and it was like, but they were alive. And several of us asked, why are there goats in the tunnel? And it was because the tunnel went to the hospital, and the mothers giving birth were so stressed that they weren't able to produce milk. So they were taking the goats to the hospital to use goat milk to feed the babies that were being born during that siege of Sarajevo.
as well as the mothers themselves, I guess. I think that's what they said.
Perhaps, yeah.
This maybe is not the right photo to talk about needing any kind of beverage or whatever. But this was our tour guide for the entire time, and a couple of our tour mates. And
they were trying to introduce me to dark beer and get me to. It wasn't too bad. I hadn't really been a fan of dark beer, but this was pretty good.
So there. On the bright side, if you're interested in any kind of trinket or jewelry or what have you, you can wander the streets of these cities, Sarajevo in this case, and you went into shop after shop with very ornate. What would that be?
It's like an oil lamp.
Oh, okay, okay. I thought it was jewelry.
No, no, those are little oil lamps.
So now you know why I brought her along. She tells me this is where the river flows that we saw in that earlier picture. And was that even our hotel? Or it was
No,
it was our hotel was
was
a
near
block or
there,
so
but
away. But any way you look in any of these cities, you see churches, you see mosques, you see synagogues. What was the thing that mentioned in our tour guide that was it Sarajevo? The one maybe the only place in the world where you can simultaneously hear the bells and what's the chant from the mosque
from the call to prayer from the mosque.
and from the synagogues.
Well, no, there aren't any active synagogues left in Sarajevo. It's now a Jewish museum. Basically the Jewish population is very tiny. But at one time, Sarajevo was known for being very welcoming to all religions. But during World War II, the Jewish population was rounded up, and so now it's just a Jewish museum.
And unfortunately, it was not just the Jewish population that vanished, if you will. The war sort of some of the bitterness that existed from ancient days had sort of settled in the early 1900s, but all of that was back on the front burner when this war came around. You picked your side and so on and so forth. And so following the war, the demographics throughout the countries was altered dramatically. And it's not the same Croatia or Bosnia or that it might have been.
There's a
in the
lot more
40s.
segregation of
Yeah.
ethnic groups within the countries than there had been previously.
But we got around mostly on land in a minibus, I guess you call it. It's not exactly a large bus, but a comfortable one. But it was nice to see the progress on the countryside as well as in the cities.
With solar panels, those are solar panels.
Well, I know that.
So,
Well, but we were going underground ourselves as well, and because that whole area is extremely hilly, so the traditional roadways could not necessarily get around as easily as they would if they were able to tunnel, and so they dug tunnels. And every which way you turned, there was a church. Some of them were very ornate inside. You can see how tall you would have to be to get anywhere near the top of this. And this is just the side aisle of the church. Outside, pelican?
storks.
Stork?
The
You.
storks had made nest all around that area of Croatia. Or that was still in Bosnia.
So you take over. This was a one of the things that we do when we travel with OAT is spend time either dining or even in some cases spending the night with local families. And this was the place we stayed overnight and learned some cooking techniques and what have you.
We made cheese and we made cooked breakfast and lunch. And they taught us about different,
The artistic thing.
yeah, with basically making wood prints. Because the woman who lives there, she restored this old tradition that they'd had that had sort of been forgotten. And so she's been restoring, making these wood print stencils that she uses to roll out on the walls and decorate the walls of their home in various places around town or in the village. It's not even a town, it's just a village.
I'm fairly certain that she's not taking a picture of that milk jug. Maybe the greenery, the
Leak, that was a leak.
is it a leak? Okay. Because how do you explain taking a picture of a milk jug? But anyway, but they were two of the women in our group, and then
That's when we were making the cheese.
so this was the lady of the household, and then these three were part of our group. The master of the household in the black. Debbie missing our son's
Pomeranian.
Pomeranians were quite prevalent along the trail we took.
The breakfast that we stayed overnight at the farm and we made breakfast the next morning with the family.
Were you, I was wondering, when you stay with these families, do they speak English so that they can tell you what's going on, or?
Yeah, actually throughout that whole area, just about everybody we encountered could speak some English. Yes, in fact, it was one of the easiest areas that I've traveled for finding English speakers.
Oh.
And the English was very good. So yeah, this couple, and their son spoke English to us the whole time.
What is that he has in his hand? Do you know?
That I don't know.
Like a pepper, maybe?
I
Or
don't know what it is.
anyway. This was another visit we made.
In the same village.
But this was in one of those high rises.
No. This was the young family. They divided us up the night before. We had breakfast with the farming family that we stayed with. This young woman, and this is her son, it was in the same village, and we had dinner with them.
Somebody in the city.
No, that was the older woman. Anyway, to introduce us to various kinds of family situations and lifestyles. And yeah, so in this particular home, there were, I think, 4 of us that were with this family, and the other groups were, the other part of our group, they were with 2 other families. So there were 3 families total in the village that we ate with.
The ever-present cat. This was above probably where our room was. Back in
Zagreb,
not back in, but in Zagreb, probably the largest city among the region, would you say?
it's the capital of Croatia, but
just an ornate gate. I don't know a soul walking through it. But this is a tie shop, as in necktie. And they have a sign out front saying, home of the necktie. Croatia is where the necktie originated, or so they say. And so that's how they market it. But they have these extremely ornate ties, and not that I know anybody who wears a tie anymore, but Debbie wanted to get me one, and I said, no, maybe next time. And another, this looks like more of an Orthodox church.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it was it was definitely the Orthodox Church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it wasn't this one though.
No,
No, okay. Doesn't she blend in well with the colors of the background? I mean,
but they decorated the roof with the shields of Zagreb and Croatia.
Wow.
this is a newer building, as you can tell, maybe. But was still under construction. It's on the left side of this photo.
There was a lot of construction going on in Zagreb, and in fact, most of the museums were closed because they'd had a major earthquake 5 years ago. And many of the old buildings were damaged. So they are in the process of reconstructing them.
And then the one reason Ralph wanted to go on this tour was the waterfalls. Not the one reason, but one of the appeals or attractions for me. And as you can tell, this is not your backyard trickle waterfall. And to get a view of it up close and personal, you have to find your way down this.
It's in the national park. Is it I'm not sure that I can pronounce it correctly. Pitlik? But it's Croatian National Park, and it's got very unusual limestone formations that are only found in a few parts of the world. And so they go to great lengths to protect the walkways and the limestone formations to keep them from being damaged.
Wow.
So elsewhere in the park, this is where other cascades, if you will, just it goes on and on and on for hundreds of yards in this direction. I think the main one, they're probably walking over in the direction of that large tall one that we just looked at. But this is one of a series of these cascades that's just up. And this has nothing to do with the waterfall. In fact, I'm not sure why
It's back in Zagreb, and I think it's because of the damage done from the earthquakes. You can see that they destabilize several strap around the tower there to help stabilize it until they can finish repairs on a lot of the structures.
So is that anything more than wishful thinking? I mean,
I don't know.
that looks like a ribbon.
No, it's a
Just wandering around some of the back alleys one day, looking at different odds and ends.
They do have a wonderful trolley system It was really easy to get around Zagreb with in the old part of town. Go real far, but it was very easy to use.
So this was when we were visiting.
The Istrian Peninsula of Croatia.
Okay, right. We were visiting a section of, let me see if I've got, I'll describe it when we get back to the visuals. But the Istrian Peninsula, if you look at a map of that area, the upper northwest portion is a inverted triangle. That is the last thing you see before you go into the Italian portion of the continent. And but this is again is a schoolhouse, if you will, or at least remnants of an old schoolhouse, and with the local language.
Yes, it's one of the oldest Croatian dialects, and they're trying to, in this particular part of Istria, they're trying to preserve the language, and this shows the letters that are part of that alphabet.
A mandatory part of any of these tours is to taste the local beverages. And we did our best to make sure that everybody had a chance to taste. And but this was in that same region. It was a section of the inland hilltop, if you will.
The hill towns, yes, one of the
Yeah.
hill towns.
And we have been there, maybe not in this specific location, but we have been in that vicinity the one previous time we were in that part of Croatia. And it was sort of because we were in Slovenia as a starting point for a tour, but rented a car and drove down to this peninsula because it had been recommended by any number of people.
And by Webb and Renee, who are on this.
And by Webb and that's right, because
Webb and Renee
Webb
would
told
take
us to go spend the night in a hotel that had been a prison back during the war. And it was the kind of prison you would definitely try to avoid.
But we did. We spent the night in the prison cell.
But these hill towns are basically out in the middle of very rural areas. So I suspect there's a little competition between these two communities here.
It's a big truffle area. They the collection and selling of truffles is a big industry basically in this particular part of Istria. And they were letting us sample all these different things that were made with truffles.
Including cats and roses. So here we are back on waterfront, ready to depart for a different part of the tour. And
That's an Opatia.
that's right. And this is a hotel where we, if you're looking at it from the ground level, this is the part, but because it's a reflection, the room we were in is one of these over here, but would look much like this. A gorgeous room, gorgeous view to have from your hotel. And another nearby hotel had an alley in the back that I meandered toward and stumbled upon this mural, I hesitate to call it anything like we have on our walls in many parts of the
But it
States.
is, I mean.
Oh, I
it's a
know it
view.
is, but so, but on the waterfront, so this is the view from our hotel, looking out toward the neighboring hotel and the waterfront.
And Apatia was very popular apparently in the 20s and 30s as a tourist destination. But Dubrovnik became far more popular and visited. But it's absolutely a beautiful coastal town and very manageable and at least right now certainly not as crowded as Dubrovnik.
Again, you can see the oil industry back here, probably ocean liners or ships. So it's a different view of the waterfront from.
Yeah, because it's a big port back
Right.
in that part of the coastline.
And there was a story about this statue. Do you recall that whole issue? Yeah. One of the last, probably the last nature event that we had on the tour was a visit to this series of caves.
In Slovenia, we were in Slovenia at this
Right,
point.
we had just, I have to show you that on the map in a few seconds. But this is just crossing from Croatia into Slovenia. And it, as you can see, was a fairly popular destination. And only a handful of these people were part of our group. The rest were just people there at the same time we were there.
Well, it's supposed to be one of the largest caves in the world.
Though what everybody later on start Googling, say, we don't see any mention of it in world's biggest caves or anything else. So I don't know what the actual rankings would be. That we're at a restaurant then. We thought that they did interesting decorative work for some of the paint for the restaurants. As one of those, yeah, I'll have what he's having kind of moments.
Just keep going.
Here we're back. Same, I should have moved those photos together. This was our driver for how many, the entire time, or not the entire time, but much of the time we were.
When we were in the motor coach, yeah.
Yeah. And this was the hotel we were in, probably not one with a real balcony, but with a good view. So this is where the waterfall was, the Plitvice Lakes National Park. And then up here, Apatia is near where the caves were. This is
the caves over here. Apatia is where we showed all those pictures of the coastline in our hotel.
Okay.
And then the caves are.
So this is a different name for the caves and is in the guide. So I'm not.
That's the
But
caves
yeah.
we went to.
And then this is Istria, which is the destination for any number of tours. When we visited there on our own, the first time we were in that part of the world, we drove all the way to the tip down here, which is just spectacular. Highly recommend it by Blessing and Thomas. But from here, we were heading into Ljubljana, capital of Slovenia. And once there, we will end up touring around Lake Bled, which doesn't look like a lake there, but it is a lake. And very, very spectacular scenery there. This is downtown Ljubljana. Was this from our hotel, or this may not have been?
Well, actually, it was from one side of the hotel.
Yeah,
Not our view, but
that was looked like a worthwhile hike to go visit, but everybody who had done it said, don't bother. So we didn't. Some famous person whose name I don't know, a would-be drummer. And this is the lake,
Lake Bled.
Lake Bled. This is an island in the middle of the lake, so that's the back and forth going on there.
And while we were there happened to be an accordion convention. So you had accordion players from all over the world who came to compete. So the backdrop to visiting the lake and the church on the island was listening to accordion music everywhere we went.
And this wasn't prearranged. We just happened to see there had been some performance somewhere in the vicinity, and our main guide saw this guy coming and sort of cornered him and said, hey, give you a few bucks if you play a few notes for our group, and he gladly did. And but this is the back and forth from the mainland to that island. And this is not the island itself. This is the other shore that you climb up to on steps out here if you wish.
And Tito's home is in that area, or what had been his home. Palace, I guess, was on the shoreline of the lake.
This wasn't it, was it? Wasn't
No.
one of those things up
No.
there? This is back in Ljubljana. This is, yeah, get away. This was almost the view from our room, but it was actually a view from the aisle leading to the escalator.
But there's a lot of beautiful Art Nouveau architecture in Ljubljana. A lot of the older buildings are beautifully decorated in the main downtown section.
Orange and green are popular colors in that area.
And there is also graffiti.
And graffiti. But the downtown area of Ljubljana is basically car free, except for, I guess, certain business related deliveries and the like. Then there are things that they know they're aiming their messages at English speaking tourists. So that's why you see something that says you buy wine because nobody starts a story saying somebody was eating salad. Or because your name sounds like something that people might react to. Fucking good wines, right? And one more meal for a group of folks sitting outside next to the wall. And I think we're just about at the end. We were on a boat tour leading This is the main cathedral in Ljubljana. But everything.
And there are a
it's sort
number of
forks-
bridges, yeah, the number of bridges across the river.
And as we're riding along on the boat, the little ones see us and wave to them. So you have to wave back or vice versa. We waved at them and they knew that they should wave back. But we were told, any number of folks said, you can do whatever you want in downtown Ljubljana. Everybody speaks English, quote unquote. So, but it was a very welcoming place. Now, I don't normally take pictures of parking lots, but with the Alps in the background, it was sort of like, well, you got to take the picture.
And this was at the airport, wasn't it?
This was at the airport.
In Ljubljana, outside of Ljubljana.
So this was our last photo because we were getting ready to head home. And that's the end, folks.
Wow. Excellent.
That's when I mess up the thing in the post on Sunday and have to reprint it.
So thank you, Ralph. If you can hit the unshare or stop share button, then we can look at each other and celebrate you.
Oh,
Stop share right there. No, pull it down. Pull it
I
down.
know it went away.
We have to pull it down.
I tried that.
Okay. Okay, hit it again. There you go.
Yay, you did it. Bravo. Thank you. The two of you are a great pair. I think you've had 40 years of practice and lots of great trips. I think I'm going to stop the recording now, and then we can unless there are any burning questions that you want to have on the recording. Anybody have a quick question? All right. Well, let's celebrate and then okay. There you go. Thanks, Ralph and Deb.